All right, let's talk about the quest for ultimate power. It's a classic, right? But today, we're diving into three completely different ways to get there. We're talking about the path of absolute order, the desperate dash for physical godhood, and the truly radical act of creating your own self from scratch.
So, let's kick things off with the big, kind of terrifying philosophical question. What do you think is worse? Being trapped in a perfect, logical cage where you have no freedom? Or living in a reality where nothing is true and everything is meaningless?
And this question really sets the stage for two paths to total oblivion, each one a different flavor of cosmic horror. You've got the tyranny of the absolute on one side and the tyranny of the relative on the other.
So, first up, let's explore that first path, the argument for absolute, unwavering, perfect certainty.
You gotta understand, for a meta-villain like Vril Dox, this isn't about the usual stuff like greed or taking over territory. Nope. His ambition is way more intellectual. He sees chaos, and he wants to impose his own perfect logic on everything.
He literally looks at the entire universe and sees a messy, flawed equation, and he thinks he's the one, the only grand intellectual, who can finally solve it for good by re-engineering reality itself.
So his power isn't about armies or weapons. It's way bigger than that. He's targeting the very structure of reality itself. The goal? To make free will a logical fallacy. To make every other viewpoint, every other possibility completely and utterly obsolete.
And here's the kicker, right? This so-called perfect universe he wants to create, it's nothing more than a cosmic prison. It's a universe with no choice, no diversity, and ultimately, no life. Just sterile, unchanging logic.
Okay, so we've seen rigid, perfect order. Now let's flip the script completely and look at the polar opposite, a being that represents absolute, total meaninglessness.
This guy, the continuist, he's different. He's not after power. He thinks that's pointless. What he wants is to dissolve reality into what he calls ultimate pulp, where the only rule is that there are no rules.
So how does he do it? It's all about what you could call narrative decay. He doesn't just blow up cities. No, that's too simple. He steals their very cohesion, their history. Imagine waking up one morning and your city, say Gotham, was suddenly founded by Vikings. That's his game, fracturing reality itself. So you see, his ambition isn't conquest in any traditional sense. It's something way more insidious. It's the total and complete erasure of stable, reliable truth, turning everything into a cheap, sensational story with no weight. So there you have it. We're presented with two different kinds of oblivion. On one hand, a perfect prison of pure reason, a universe without freedom. On the other, a complete anarchy of endless, meaningless nonsense, a universe without truth. Which is worse?
Okay, we've seen these two huge, horrifying cosmic ideas, but what does this kind of existential conflict actually do to a person? Let's bring it down to a more human level.
So, meet Dr. Johannes Faust. He's a brilliant scholar, but he's terrified of becoming what's called a last man, just another apathetic, comfortable person. And that fear drives him to find a shortcut to power, a way to physically transcend his own humanity.
And his story is really a huge cautionary tale. He tries to solve a deep philosophical crisis with a physical fix. He wants to become a god through science and mutation, but it's all built on a lie, a way to bypass the hard work of actually overcoming himself.
And this brings us to Vampirella. Her journey starts in a place of deep, profound, existential crisis. And it's all captured by this one word, resentment. It's this deep-seated, gut-wrenching nausea you get from not knowing who you really are, because you're just haunted by all these values and ideas that were forced on you. For her, this was literal. Her mother, Lilith, used a magic mirror to constantly rewrite her memories, her entire past, so she was completely trapped in this state, unable to tell what was real and what was just an illusion.
So, stuck between a reality that's a perfect cage and one that's a meaningless void, what do? Well, what if the answer isn't about finding the true story, but about creating one? And this is her breakthrough. This is the moment everything changes. She finally realizes there is no true origin story to find. The chaos, the manipulation, the lies, that was the truth all along. She stops digging for a foundation that was never there in the first place. And instead of fighting this chaos, she does something radical. She embraces it.
She adopts what's known as the Dionysian spirit. It's this philosophical idea of accepting all of it, the chaos, the contradictions, even the tragedy of it all, and using it as a source of incredible power. By doing this, she carves out a whole new path to power. First, she rejects being a victim. Second, she wields her own will. Her identity is now defined by the life she decides to build. And finally, she embraces those contradictions. Her thousand faces aren't a flaw, they're her greatest strength. This path, it rejects both Dox's rigid order and the continuous empty chaos. And in that moment, she becomes Vampirella, the self-begotten. She becomes the Übermensch. She rises above every identity that was ever forced on her to become the one and only author of her own being.
So, when you lay it all out, you see these three totally different quests for ultimate power. Dox wants to re-engineer reality. Faust wants to escape his own humanity. But Vampirella, her goal is freedom, a freedom she achieves by writing her own story. It's an incredibly powerful synthesis of will and self-creation.
Which leaves us with one final thought to chew on. In a world where truths are always shifting, where foundations can crumble, is the ultimate power really about controlling reality? Or is it about having the strength, the will to create your own?